Well, not wasting a second of his second term, President Obama making it clear who's in charge for the next 4 years, laying out a bold agenda in his inaugural address. At least that's the way I read it. With more on this, Marianne Marsh, a Democratic strategist, Justin Safey, a Republican strategist, and Rich Lowry, the editor of the National Review. Rich, I'll start with you. What did you make of the speech?
I thought it was a very audacious speech in two respects. One, it was an unabashedly progressive speech. It was shorn of any of the kind of centrist pose that's characterized his rhetoric since really 2004 when he burst onto the stage with that speech at the Democratic Convention. And it also, I think, was audacious in its appropriation of the tradition of the American founding. It's kind of a direct challenge to Republicans and the Tea Party saying, you're the guys obsessed with the founders, talking about them constantly. You are wrong. I am the one firmly within their tradition, and you are the ones outside the mainstream. And you better get on board of my program, or you're going to have to hit the highway.
Marianne, was the speech audacious in your view?
It was bold and it was audacious, and it's exactly everything he ran on, and that's why he won this election by such a big margin over Mitt Romney. So voters elected Barack Obama to a second term knowing what they were going to get, and everything he talked about today, putting people back to work, getting the economy back on track in a way that everyone has a fair shot. Immigration reform, reduction in gun violence, the only thing he didn't run on, climate change, education, all of those things are exactly what he campaigned on. And he talked about it in a way that shows that he still has hope, he still wants change, but he understands that to bring this country forward, he's going to have to do it in a non-traditional way, much more like the campaign.
And Justin, do you agree? I mean, was this the same old, the same rhetoric, the same pitch, the same positioning?
Well, I think it was a very different Barack Obama than we saw in 2004, as Rich mentioned, in 2008. This is not the post-partisan Barack Obama. This is the Barack Obama who is laying down a partisan marker, explaining his vision for progressive government, not even a nod whatsoever to the fact that the American people elected Republicans to control the People's House, the House of Representatives. No nod to the fact that there needs to be bipartisan at all whatsoever. That's what concerned me the most. And also no discussion of the debt. No discussion whatsoever of the debt. That concerned me.
Well, and to your point, big discussion of entitlements and what they mean to this country. Rich, what did you make of that? I want you to hear the sound first. Here's the president on entitlements from his speech today.
The commitments we make to each other through Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security, these things do not sap our initiative, they strengthen us. They do not make us a nation of takers. They free us to take the risks that make this country great.
And what do you make of that, Rich?
Well, this is not a president. This is not rhetoric that sounds like a president who's interested truly in a grand bargain. We're going to make tough choices on entitlements. This is a defense of the unreconstructed entitlement state. He did have one line in there, we need to take care of the deficit, but then immediately he says, but there's no choice to make between investing in the elderly and investing in the younger generation, which is a way of saying we're not going to make these choices at all. We're just going to keep on spending.
Marianne, jump in here. I mean, where was the conversation about, trying to tackle our national debt?
Well, I mean, first, I just want to address one thing that Rich said. I mean, President Obama spent the last 4 years trying to work with Republicans. That failed. And I think in the first few weeks since his reelection.
Answer my question, because this is an issue that we talk about every single day on this program. There's $16 trillion in federal debt, $50,000 for each and every American in this country to have to pay. And the president doesn't even mention it in this speech. Why?
There was a mention of it, but you're going to hear much more detail in the State of the Union. You have to look at these two separate speeches separately. Today was much more broad, thematic, and putting out the fact that he's going to go after the campaign promises he made in the next 4 years. The State of the Union on February 12th, I promise you, you will hear a great deal about deficit reduction, the debt ceiling, and all of that, because we're coming up on that.
But he's had 4 years now to really put out there a serious entitlement reform, and he hasn't, because he's not interested in it, I believe, and certainly his base is not interested in it.
No, he's coming. That will happen. That will happen.
And he gave no indication whatsoever. If you read the speech and you listen to the speech, it was all about the collectivism, that things have to be done together, justifying a role of expansionist government. And there was no discussion at all about limiting government whatsoever. So I hope he does what we're being told he's going to do, but I'm very skeptical right now.
In fact, he even said that we've got to pay more attention to climate change. He tipped his hat again to the green energy programs. Listen to this.
We will respond to the threat of climate change, knowing that the failure to do so would betray our children and future generations. The path towards sustainable energy sources will be long and sometimes difficult. But America cannot resist this transition. We must lead it.
Marianne, to you, are we going to throw more money down the hole on these green energy programs that, A, don't employ Americans, or not enough, to my way of thinking, and they waste money, they lose money? What do you say?
I think if you talk to a lot of Republicans, especially those in the Northeast in New York and New Jersey, who just had to fight to get the kind of money after Hurricane Sandy that everybody else gets without blinking, they're all for this now, too. So I think this is the point he was making in this speech. Just like the last line we talked about was a direct refutation about Paul Ryan, this was about Hurricane Sandy. And I think he's making the point that
Sandy? This was green energy he was talking about. This is his commitment
talking about climate change.
To getting rid of climate change.
I think this was one of the most ridiculous passages in the speech, because he ended it by saying the founding ideals have no meaning unless we fight climate change, which would be major news to Thomas Jefferson, that unless we're investing in Solyndra, the Declaration of Independence has no meaning. It was a laughable passage.
Justin, last word.
If President Obama is really worried and concerned about the future of our children, then he will do something and take dramatic action, use the political capital he's gained to do something about the $16 trillion of debt that is sitting as a yoke of oppression on our future children's futures.
$16 trillion, my friends. Marianne, Justin, and Rich, thanks so much for coming on tonight. Really appreciate your time. Great conversation. Thank you.